Tonight, you're going to do something insane. You're going to lie down, close your eyes, and go completely unconscious. No weapons in hand, no lookout, no fence, no lock, not even a solid roof in most of human history. For 7 or 8 hours, you will be blind, deaf to almost everything, and unable to run. And somehow, you'll wake up. For most of the animal kingdom, that shouldn't work. A sleeping creature is the easiest meal on the planet. No chase, no fight, no risk. Just walk up and bite. So why didn't lions, wolves, hyenas, and leopards spend the last few 100,000 years treating sleeping humans like an all-you-can-eat buffet? The obvious answer is fire. Humans figured out fire, predators are scared of fire, problem solved, roll credits. Except that's not actually the answer. Or rather, it's only about a third of the answer, and it's the part that makes people stop thinking too early. Let's start with the assumption everyone gets wrong. That early humans were slow, weak, and defenseless, saved only by clever tools. In reality, humans sleeping in groups were never as vulnerable as they looked. Because vulnerability isn't just about the individual body, it's about the system built around that body. Start with the fire. Controlled fire use goes back at least 1 million years, with strong evidence from sites like Wonderwork Cave in South Africa showing burned bone and ash deep in sediment layers. But fire wasn't just warmth. It was a perimeter. Predators like big cats have a deep, hardwired aversion to open flame and smoke, not because they're thinking about it, but because fire has meant danger, pain, and destroyed territory for every generation of predator that ever encountered it. A ring of firelight did something almost as good as a wall. It turned darkness, the predator's best weapon, into the one place they didn't want to be. But fire alone doesn't explain everything, because plenty of early human sleep sites weren't near permanent fires, and plenty of predators aren't afraid of a small flame at all. So here's layer 2, numbers and noise. Sleeping in a group isn't just emotionally comforting. It's a defense mechanism with math behind it. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer groups, like the Hadza in Tanzania, have observed something called vigilance sharing. Even in unstructured group sleep, without an assigned night watch, someone in the group is statistically almost always semi-awake, shifting position, coughing, tending a fire, or waking to feed a child. Predators are ambush specialists. Ambush requires surprise and predictability. A group where the pattern of stillness keeps randomly breaking is a group that's very hard to predict, and unpredictability is exactly what an ambush hunter cannot work with. Now here's the part nobody talks about: smell. Predators don't primarily hunt with their eyes at night. They hunt with their noses, and humans frankly smell like a health hazard to a lot of large carnivores. Group sleeping sites accumulate concentrated human scent, sweat, smoke residue, and waste, layered night after night in the same spot. Research into predator avoidance behavior, including studies on lion and hyena scent response in East Africa, has shown that many large predators show measurable avoidance of areas saturated with unfamiliar, concentrated human scent, treating it less like prey nearby and more like unknown large group territory. Proceed with caution. Prey doesn't usually smell like a settlement. A settlement smells like something that might fight back in numbers, and predators are risk calculators above almost everything else. A lion doesn't want an even fight. It wants a guaranteed one. That risk calculation is the real core of the answer, and it goes deeper than most people expect. Predators are not driven by hunger alone. They're driven by the ratio of potential injury to potential reward. A solitary, silent, motionless human in tall grass at dusk is a plausible target. A cluster of 10 to 30 humans, layered with fire, smoke, shifting noise, and concentrated scent, surrounded by the debris of tools and structure, reads as something closer to a rival predator's den than a meal. And getting injured while hunting is close to a death sentence for a wild predator. An injured hunter can't hunt, and a predator that can't hunt starves. Evolution doesn't reward boldness. It rewards caution that happens to work. There's a fourth layer too, one that's easy to miss, because it isn't about the humans at all. It's about the landscape they chose. Archaeological reconstructions of early campsites, including work around the Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania, suggest early hominins weren't sleeping just anywhere. They favored elevated ground, rock overhangs, and locations with limited approach angles, places a predator couldn't rush from multiple directions at once. This is the same logic a modern soldier uses picking a defensive position. Control the angles, And you don't need to control the whole battlefield. A cave mouth, a rocky ledge, a spot with your back against stone, these turn an open, surroundable group into a group that can only be approached from one predictable direction, which collapses the ambush advantage even further. Here's where it gets genuinely strange, though. This isn't unique to humans, and it isn't even unique to intelligence. Many prey and semi-prey species sleep in exposed, communal, seemingly reckless arrangements. Flamingos standing in open water, meerkats sleeping in shallow burrows with sentries, baboons clustering on cliff faces. The pattern repeats because it works. Group sleep with layered sensory defense is one of the oldest, most repeated survival strategies in the animal kingdom, and humans didn't invent it so much as accidentally perfect it, by stacking fire, structure, scent, and social behavior on top of a strategy that was already ancient before we existed. There's also a genetic layer that rarely gets mentioned. Comparative studies of sleep architecture, how deeply and how long different primates sleep, show that humans actually sleep in shorter, more efficient cycles than most other great apes. Chimpanzees and gorillas build elaborate nests and sleep long, heavy hours in relative safety, high in trees or deep in vegetation. Humans, sleeping on the ground and exposed, evolved comparatively lighter, more easily interrupted sleep. Some researchers connect this to the shift toward ground sleeping in open or semi-open environments, starting somewhere around the time early hominins began using fire and structured camps consistently. Sites like those studied in the cradle of humankind in South Africa hint at this transition. In other words, our sleep itself adapted to be defensible. Not deep and vulnerable like a gorilla's. Light, easily broken, easily shared. So the real answer isn't fire. It's a layered system. Fire deterring approach. Group vigilance breaking predictability. Accumulated scent signaling risk instead of opportunity. Defensible terrain narrowing the angle of attack. Evolved lighter sleep cycles making ambush harder to execute cleanly. And, underneath all of it, a predator's own risk math telling it that an injury-free meal was worth almost anything, and a group of sleeping humans was rarely worth the gamble. And here's the part that connects back to right now, tonight, in your own bed. You don't build a fire before you sleep. You don't sleep in a cluster of 30 people, layered in smoke and shifting noise, backed against a rock wall with one approach angle. You sleep alone, in silence, behind a door, under a roof, with none of the ancient defensive architecture your ancestors relied on for hundreds of thousands of years. And you don't think twice about it. That's not because the danger disappeared. It's because you replaced the entire ancient system, fire, group, scent, terrain, vigilance, with 4 walls, a lock, and a species-wide agreement to leave big predators mostly alone. You didn't outgrow the old defenses. You just outsourced them to concrete and infrastructure, so completely that you forgot they were ever defenses at all. Somewhere in your body, though, the old software is still running. It's why silence at night can feel loud. It's why an unfamiliar creak makes you go still before you even consciously register it. It's why some people still feel safer sleeping with a light on, or a door locked, or another person in the room, even when nothing in the modern world is actually hunting them. That's not irrational fear. That's a few 100,000 years of successful risk calculation, quietly checking the perimeter of a den that, as far as your nervous system is concerned, never really stopped being exposed.